For 50 years, the village of Barwan Kala hadn't seen a single wedding. Wow! 121, the highest number of unmarried men in the entire state of Bihar, India. This so-called village of bachelors wasn't a paradise for singles to enjoy their solitude by conscious choice. No, it was much more complicated than that. Nobody came to this remote little pocket because it was so cut off from the rest of the world. For a long time, the village didn't have electricity, water, phone network, healthcare center. They didn't even have a road into and out of the place. If residents wanted to go to the closest town, nearly 30 miles away, they had to walk through winding hills and a dense jungle for 4 hours. A place with pretty much no link to the outside world that you can barely get into didn't exactly entice visitors, let alone people wanting to get married there and settle down. Locals tried to request a new road, but nobody could help them. Meanwhile, the number of bachelors, of all ages mind you, kept growing until they decided to take matters into their own hands. In January 2008, groups of villagers got together, chisels, hammers, and shovels in hand. One group pushed big boulders to the side, while another hammered them down into little pieces to lay the path. A few years later, they celebrated the construction of a modest but usable 4-mile road. Only there was a problem. The area they were building in fell into a designated wildlife sanctuary where construction was banned. The Forest Authority wasn't happy and reacted promptly. Almost a decade later, in February 2017, a historic event took place. One man named AJ brought his partner home after their wedding. Tractors and motorcycles accompanied the groom to the bride's village over 60 miles away. The next day, they came to Barwan Kala through the road AJ and other villagers had created. He was the first person from his village to marry someone and move them in a half-century. Another bachelor from the village had gotten married back in 2012, but because there was no road yet, they stayed in his partner's town until March 2017. Since the path had been laid, the couple loaded their stuff on a tractor and went to the man's home. There is another mysterious place in India, the village of Godini. It has around 2,000 households in total, but it's got one of the highest rates of twin births in the world. This medical mystery started around 70 years ago, and scientists began speculating on what was causing it. Some put it down to pollutants in the village's water, but others refute that because the newborns are perfectly healthy. A public health practitioner conducted a survey there in 2008. He recorded 264 pairs of twins in the village. The number has now reached 450. He too believed there was some kind of chemical or component in the air, water, or ground that was causing this phenomenon. But strangely enough, many women who left the village still ended up having twins. His initial theory turned out to be wrong. This oddity was somehow linked to the people themselves, not the environment. To this day, genetic researchers from all over the world are studying the twins to understand why this is happening. It still remains a mystery. A similar phenomenon happened in 2 other villages in completely different parts of the world, one in Nigeria and the other in Brazil. In the Nigerian case, a chemical was found inside yam peelings that might have caused the spike in twin births. The Hiri Bazaar in India's richest village. In 2015, it had 235 families. 60 of them were millionaires. A few years before that, the place was drought-prone, the local economy had plummeted, and more than 90% of the residents left. Around the same time, the only person with a postgraduate degree in the village took charge. Inspired by someone else's work in another Indian village, he started rainwater harvesting and water conservation programs. Locals built dams and bunds to create a spectacular irrigation system. The groundwater levels rose, and the village began to prosper. Now the residents' lives had transformed, and people came back from the cities to their old villages. The number of families has increased from 90 to 235. Instead of employing laborers, they collaborate by working on each other's farms. Punsari is a village of 6,000 people in Gujarat. It's been dubbed a model village because it has the facilities of a major city. So much that officials study its development to create similar villages all over the country. It's got round-the-clock uninterrupted water and electricity, 2 primary schools, a health center, street lights, and a drainage system. There's also Wi-Fi, CCTV cameras put in key locations, and a public address system. It covers the regional's entire population using 140 loudspeakers installed all over the place. The project started in 2006. Back then, the village was underdeveloped. Homes didn't even have toilets. Within 6 years' time, it became a gem. And then there's the cleanest village in Asia. Malinong, India got the title in 2003. The village became a legend because when you walk in, all trash and litter disappear. The local kids get their brooms and sweep the streets from leaves and garbage before heading to school. They're also responsible for emptying the trash. Biodegradable things are recycled and used as fertilizers. The village also has town gardeners who make sure plants and flowers in the footpaths make someone's walk nothing but pleasant. It's not clear when this tradition started, but some believe it was 130 years ago when there was an outbreak, and the only way to control it was with cleanliness. One of the villages that gets an award for its creativity is Upplan. A local man named Tarzan had gone on a trip abroad 70 years ago. He sailed there on a ship, and in the mid-90s, re-inspired by some nostalgia for that wonderful journey, he decided to build a giant vessel on the roof of his family's house. Ever since the ship was constructed, it became a well-known identifier for this family and their home. A few years later, someone else from the village got a lion mounted on the water tank of his roof. He received a lot of criticism from some of his village neighbors, but others were inspired. A new trend took over in the community and spread to other villages in the state of Punjab. People started getting creative with their rooftop water tanks as well. Some come in the shape of an airplane, lotus, eagle, kangaroo, soccer ball, tea kettle, tank, you name it. Each person picks one that matches their identity. Others install them based on their likes and past experiences. A bodybuilder goes for a muscle figure. Others who travel to different places go for airplanes and ships. Someone said they added the soccer figure because they wanted to become a pro player but never achieved it. Makes you wonder, what figure personal to you would you put on your roof? Me? A cookie.